I don't know. I don't really see that many people. I mean, we're at the end of a dirt road on a cliff with wilderness behind us and the river in front of us. So we're pretty isolated, which has worked out quite well. Yep. Oh, it's going.
Hear myself. There you go. I'm unmuted. I muted myself. So we're still working on technical hiccups here. This is episode 7. So I'm going to welcome everybody again to this live stream. I muted myself so at the beginning I wouldn't be talking over the video that we had running. Still learning. Still learning. Brent, let me welcome you again. Again, live causes hiccups. Still working. I'm not a professional broadcaster here, but you're based in Utah. We're talking briefly about, and you answered that. Everybody could hear you, but they couldn't hear me. So we talked about agenda and topics. We're going to talk COVID briefly about also implications for the exploration space. I want to hear your opinion because you worked on feasibility studies and stuff as well. A lot of companies are holed up, so we're going to talk about that. And of course, we got some questions from the Twitter users already. Quite a few are coming in. Some of them are company specific, but others are sector specific. So we're going to dive right in. You're an exploration and economic geologist, so it's really interesting to hear from your perspective the impact of COVID-19. Maybe you can give us your candid view of what is actually happening.
Well, on the exploration side, I mean, certainly most countries now have shut down, and that's going to delay a lot of exploration. If what Joe and I are focusing on right now are companies that have the sufficient cash to continue their program when the shutdown comes off, if and when it comes off, with good projects that I think are important enough that they'll attract a major eventually. And I guess, a competent management team that knows what they're doing. And that's always what we focus on. So that's where we're at right now. But certainly, Mexico shut down, Ecuador shut down, et cetera, et cetera. That's going to delay a lot of work. And if your exploration program is seasonal dependent, this could be really bad if, for instance, things can't happen in Alaska this summer. That's a whole year that's shot. So you've got to look at that as well. So we're looking at all those different aspects, with the caveat that who knows what the hell's going on.
Do you have any preferred jurisdiction right now? Obviously, that changes almost daily based on the news flow. But I hear Ontario is slowly opening up again. Like Rainy River is ramping up again because it's been added to the mining essential, or mining is an essential industry. So I think the geographic focus is shifting almost on a daily basis. Do you have any preferences there?
Well, I think certainly, I guess what you'd call first world countries. West Australia, mine is considered a critical industry, so they're still working, albeit under a lot of restrictions. Nevada, Idaho, they're still working, provided people in the state, can do it, and the company set up appropriate protocol in terms of the COVID. That's still working. I don't know what's happening in Scandinavia.
I haven't heard much
Turkey.
Either, yeah.
Certainly Africa, I would be hesitant. I think that's still yet to blow up. But West Australia, other parts of Australia, Western U.S., that's probably the most likely places to get exploration back up and going. And also, I suppose, Ontario and British Columbia, et cetera.
Yeah, but like British Columbia, as you said as well, is a seasonality thing to a degree as well. So we got to watch out here. If we can't start up exploration in the next, let's say, 3-4 weeks, we might get pushed all the way back into the summer, and then you have a short season of 4 weeks to drill.
Yeah, well, a company like Westhaven, they were drilling up until last week, I think, and then they shut down as well. I would estimate that within 2 to 4 weeks, they'll have done whatever they need to do and get back to start working. And also, a lot of companies that are in the resource definition development stage that have a resource already, take a company like Bluestone in Guatemala, they're mostly been working on the pre-fees and technical studies and the feasibility, and that work can keep happening from the desktop. So those types of companies are in a better position, if you will, than someone who's actually starting to build a mine or has to go out and drill a bunch of holes to find something.
Yeah, we actually talked to quite a few companies last week on here on SF Live as well that are fortunately working on either resource definition or resource modeling, feasibility studies. And that brings me to a question I wanted to ask you as well. You worked on feasibility studies. How feasible is it actually right now to work on these, like remotely? Like, what does the whole, like, I've noticed personally, like, this is more a personal experience, but the last 2-3 weeks, people were catching their bearings. They were just getting caught up with their routines working from home. What's the impact on timelines there?
Well, in some cases, may accelerate it. I mean, if you've got the data and you've got the people working on it really shouldn't be that much of an issue. However, if you have to fly to Burkina Faso to collect the data, to do the work, you're kind of screwed. So, but once the data is in there and you're working towards that feasibility anyway, there's no reason why that work can't be done from home. In fact, a lot of it probably is. I mean, I work from home, and I could do anything from here basically.
So, has good point. Actually, working from home, has your day-to-day changed at all? Like, not really.
Not a lot. I mean, I work from home and pretty much on my own anyway. So I spend the morning looking at results, looking at who's doing what, where, that sort of thing, looking for investments. And in fact, there have been certain companies or days when it's clear that a fund or something is just dumping a stock that we like, and that's providing an opportunity to buy in at a good price. For instance, Mag Silver, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, Joe bought Mag Silver for $6. From there, it jumped up to 13. Those sorts of, I guess you'd call opportunities, are going to be showing up now and then, and when things get crazy out there. I mean, it's unfortunate, but that's what's happening.
Talking about getting crazy, and we had a good example this morning. GFG Resources put out some results this morning. It was 71 grams over 5 meters or something like that. And that, don't quote me on that one, but it was a good intercept at that time, and there was a higher grade interval in there, and the stock jumped over 120%. What's the sort of conclusion you draw from that?
People aren't paying attention. No, when I look at that as well, and really, there's a 1.5 meter interval that grades 500 something grams. And the rest of it, 7 meters, come out to about 2 grams. So, I mean, it's a great hit. It's a great hit for sure. However, putting that in context, they're still very early in the exploration of this project. They've got, I think, 50 kilometers of strike of a belt that really hasn't been explored that much. Most of it's undercover, so it's a great target area. But I would view that in terms of, this is still very early exploration. We know it's extremely nuggety gold in that part of the world, and they stepped out 150 meters both sides and got anomalous, 1 or 2 grams. So you've got to take that sort of thing in context. That this is a very nuggety system, and to define it will take a lot of very tight drilling.
Okay. No, and just as a side note, we got CEO or GFG Resources CEO Brian Skanderbeg on SF Live tomorrow, so we can talk about that in more detail, and he can give us some more color on how he interprets the results as well. So it'd be quite interesting because
I'll listen.
Because especially in this market, although gold is up today quite significantly, last time I checked, it was over 2.3%. Doubling a stock or a share price in a day is still quite remarkable, especially in these. I still call them dire times. Like, nothing has really changed. Gold environment is getting better, but exploration, no money's flowing into the exploration sector, and at Orin Inc. we see that as well. Like, we've only seen maybe 10 financings over $5 million in March, and like 4 that were over $10 million. One of them actually got canceled, which was the Silvercrest one, and the others were all like sub $1 million financings. Right, so
did Silvercrest get canceled?
From what I read, yeah, they're threatening legal action. Okay. So in my opinion, it's been canceled. From what I take out of the press release, that National Bank.
Right. So as I recall, the price was at like 8 something.
I think it was $8.25. There was a slight discount on it of like 5% at the time, but they agreed on the deal on March 11th. That was a week post PDAC, so everybody knew COVID was a thing. All right. So and for Silvercrest, and I know them personally as well. Like, they said, hey, the deal was agreed March 11th. Everybody knew about it. Why are you backing out using force majeure clause? You can't because you knew about it, right? It's not like a sudden disaster struck.
But the share price is back up to where it was.
It went up over to $9 at the time, and I haven't checked lately. Let me see, Sil, if I can have it on here real quick. It's down now. It's $1 lower, but it was highly volatile. Right, it dropped off. It went over $1 higher. So I'm quite curious. And exploration financing is another thing. Like companies can't finance their exploration programs right now. Like
it's going to be very hard to finance certainly early stage exploration. I think mine development is going to be easier, but certainly exploration is going to be very, very tough.
no, and I think that relates also, or we're going to segue actually into the questions of the Twitter users. We're getting a lot of questions about companies specific, and we're going to answer quite a few of those. And since this is live, I'm just going to throw the company name at Brent at some point, and he's going to say no opinion, or he's just going to answer on it. So just as a heads up, we got some other questions beforehand as well that we're going to go through real quick. And just use hashtag AskBrent on Twitter. We're updating, and we should, let me see. There we go. Yeah, we got some questions here. Some people retweeting our live stream, which is great. So we're getting quite a bit of visibility. I haven't checked how many viewers we've got, but it's picking up, so that's really good. And you can use hashtag AskBrent on Twitter as well to see all the questions that have been asked. So they're all there. We're not deleting anything. It's all fully transparent. There's nothing to hide from. And so let's just see if we can get a chronological order in here as well, so we don't forget anybody. And I've been sent an external question from somebody else who wants to remain nameless, but I know he's an analyst in Toronto, so let's leave it at that. So, and I'm just going to read the question to you. Assuming that COVID results in government restrictions and or companies electing to shut down exploration programs for another few months, which of your top preferred projects are run by companies with strong balance sheets that won't require immediate financing during or right after this shutdown?
All right. Liberty Gold is one that I think we'll be able to work through this. They've got 20-something million in the bank, and they're drilling out what I think is a pretty nice deposit. I should say Joe covered this in Exploration Insights in a lot of detail. He's been going through each one of the companies in our portfolio, assessing the damage, if you will, and or where the opportunities are. So, I don't want to go into too much detail on what
people should subscribe to your newsletter. That's the whole point of it.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
No, that's great, because I briefly skimmed through yesterday's edition as well. I haven't had a chance to read it fully yet. I'm a subscriber as well. So another question from the same person, actually, and I think it's a good question too, because it's in regard to M&A activity. We've seen Argonaut buy Alio Gold. Good or bad deal, that's a different story. We've seen Wallbridge buy Balmoral. So more of the juniors getting together now. Do you see that continuing? Like, do you hope, or have you heard, and you're plugged in quite well in the scene as well? Like, have you heard anything, or do you expect more of those transactions to happen?
I suspect we will start to see more of that. I mean, with the gold price doing well, it's a good opportunity for companies that have, a lot of synergies, if you will, to kind of get together and make something worthwhile out of it. So I suspect we will see more of that happen. I don't know, I can't think of anything right offhand. I mean, certainly my guess is that someone's going to buy Lundin Gold, probably Newcrest, at some point in the future. I think Bluestone Resources is another one that is an acquisition target. These high-grade, high-margin deposits are going to be more and more valuable. And certainly in Australia, West Australia in particular, there's a number of companies out there that are looking quite interesting. There's some discoveries going on and such. So, yeah, we'll continue to see this.
Yeah, we saw Chalice Gold put another interesting nickel result out. That's probably what you're referring to.
That's wonderful.
Right? So, Western Australia, just outside of Perth, from what I heard. So, not an expert on those, though. So, we got a couple other company questions, and a couple we saw beforehand, so I know that you can answer them. So, I'm going to start with those. And then we got a couple more just here on Twitter that we're just going to, like, as I said, throw the names at you. If you have an opinion, great. If you don't, or don't want to comment, just say no opinion, and we'll be fine. So, we got a question from Mining Stocks, and he's asking about probe metals.
All right, that's actually a good question. The company's been hammered. They've got something like $35 million in the bank and a market cap of 70, so EV of 35 million. They've got resources defined on their belt up in the Abitibi. I think they've got like 3.5 million all-in resources. Most of it's open pit. The grade's not that great, but their idea is to have a centralized plant and have, I think, 5 or 7 pits feeding into it. In my opinion, it's not a great deposit, but at this valuation, and given the gold price is going to do well, and given this team knows how to finance and promote and have been successful, it's probably not a bad bet at these levels.
Okay, no, that sounds pretty good, because I've seen quite a few comments on Probe on Twitter as well. People are just wondering like what's going on with all with the as you said, big cash position. So that's a good one. We get another question from Ed Gaffer, and I just retweeted his feed, so it would pop up here on the stream as well, so people can actually see the tweets on Twitter on here during our live stream here. And he's asking about a bunch of companies, but I'm only going to pick a couple. Otherwise, we're completely overextending ourselves here. Zama Resources is one I heard the other day, and I'm quite curious what you think about Nighthawk Gold as well. So let's start with Nighthawk and then segue. Zama is in Australia, if I'm not mistaken. It's an Australian company.
Nighthawk is something that Joe bought probably a year and a half so ago, based on the idea that there was, they could pull up some good high grade resources. He has since sold it. They're doing, I guess they're drilling and drilling and drilling, but to date, there's nothing that I've seen that entices me to reinvest in it.
Okay. Zama Resources, also from Edward Gaffer here on Twitter. Do you have an opinion on Zama?
Sama, S-A-M-A?
Yeah.
Not really, no.
Okay.
Don't know.
He's given us a couple more, but I'm going to segue over to Daniel S. At Daniel S on Twitter, and he's asking about Mirasol. That's an old-time favorite. So, you've been following that one for decades or a decade.
Long story short, they've got 20-something million in the bank. Their enterprise value is probably close to 10 million or less. They've got some great joint ventures going with Newcrest, and these are big projects in Chile, great targets that were generated by their previous president, Steve Nano. So they've got a number of joint ventures going at this price. It's dirt cheap. Am I buying more? No, I've got so much of this already. It's been a very frustrating trade, and that once they threw Steve out, the board, in my opinion, has really kind of gone downhill. And so basically we're living off of the joint ventures that have been generated and some good ideas in there. So if I didn't have this history, I'd look at it and go, this is a pretty good deal.
Yeah. Well, 20 million in cash for an exploration or prospect generator. I think you're exploring only one of their own projects. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. We got another question coming in on Twitter. It came in through Incomet Capital. I know them personally. They're out of Munich. They're an investment firm. So quite curious, what is your take on the Nubian Shield in the next 5 years in East Africa?
There's certainly a lot of potential there. It's a great VMS belt. Plus, I assume he's talking about Centamin, that gold belt that runs all the way down into Sudan. There's a lot left to be found out there. I think it's a great exploration play out there. I don't know enough about I've been to Egypt, not Sudan, Eritrea, and such, but I have not been to Sudan. But yeah, I mean, the geology is good. The politics, it seems to be working. Sentiment's doing all right. I think it's a great area. I wish I knew more about it.
Good answer to that question. I think we're going to do 2 more companies, and then we're sort of wrapping this up. And I'd just rather ask you more about how are you allocating your funds these days. So we're going to do 2 more questions. Like Sun Metals is one. If you have an opinion on that. That's
that skarn intrusive in BC, right?
BC. I'm not sure it's a skarn, but it's in BC. That I know.
Yeah, that's right. I've looked at that in a lot of detail. I think it's going to be a real tough one to drill out a resource. I mean, you're down pretty deep to start with. You're hitting manto mineralization and some skarn mineralization. The idea being that as deeper you go, you come into a big porphyry. But this is a very, very expensive operation and a very tough type deposit to drill out, even if you're successful. So it's not one that Joe and I are really interested in.
Okay. Last one is also a bit of a controversial one. It's quite interesting. Is Royal Nickel? Do you have an opinion on it?
They're in West Australia, right?
Exactly.
With that
They're just
high grade gold.
Yeah.
There's some fantastic specimens. And I was at the Tucson Gem and Mineral Show. They had a rock this big, just full of gold. It was just beautiful. The gold they get there comes out in very discreet little pods, and then there's some disseminated stuff. And to be honest, I haven't really looked at it in terms of, an investment valuation sort of thing. It's just, to me, it's fantastic specimens, but I don't really, when we looked at it, we really didn't see a lot of potential for a large deposit, which is really what we're focused on in Exploration Insights. It's something that's big enough that a major's going to come in and eventually buy it. That's our exit strategy, hopefully.
Yeah. That's a good segue also, just sort of where do you now in these challenging times? It's sort of a repeat of the question, what's going on, what are you looking at? But who have you allocated, if you can say personally, not Exploration Insights, that's a different model, and you're an advisor now. Joe is running that, right? You're technical, or what's your official? Just an advisor?
I don't know.
No, it's
founder and senior advisor.
Senior advisor. That's what, because I watched another interview you did the other day, and you used an interesting term there. So I think founder and senior advisor was what you used there. So, but to wrap this up, we've been doing this for 25 minutes now, and I think it gets a bit long in the teeth as well. But COVID is going on. It's going to keep us busy or focused on for the next at least 4 weeks before countries start loosening their grip just a little bit. Any ideas, or how do I phrase that properly? But suggestions for investors, especially since we got a lot of retail listening as well. What to do with your money right now? And I might give that one hint before you start answering. Sorry, is with the situation in the U.S. Just unfolding, and we've seen a big liquidity crunch in general, which also took down all the gold mining stocks, gold in general as well. Do you expect that to happen again when the U.S. gets hit badly? That's the context I want to give you for answering that question, I guess.
The honest answer is I don't know. It seems like, New York is finally getting some sort of handle on it. The problem, as you know, is we've got a complete idiot in charge of the U.S. here, and he has blown this thing. It's unaccountable. It's unaccountable what he has done by not listening to experts and acting appropriately. That said, we've still yet to see this pass through the middle of the U.S., the rural areas, and I don't know how that's going to affect things. So my expectation is we're going to continue to see extreme volatility. And what Joe and I have been doing is, again, focusing on companies with cash to get through at least a year, with projects that can be worked, that a major would be interested in, and just waiting for those days when things collapse to pick those up. I mean, recently I've purchased Mag Silver, Liberty Gold, Pan American Silver, and I think Bluestone. And we also bought something in Australia as well, which we just bought last week, so I won't talk about it. But it's a nice high-grade deposit in Australia. And I think that's what you need to do is know what the project could potentially be, know what you need to see out of the results to confirm that thesis, if you will, and be smart. Take your time. And I think it's really important to have someone, if you're not a geologist or a mining engineer or really connected in the industry, to get feedback from people who can give unbiased opinions.
That's actually a really good point. And since we're doing this on Twitter, there are quite a few good guys here on Twitter to follow. And since people seem to have a little more time on their hands, I'm not sure where they're getting it from, because I don't have any. My day hasn't really changed. I've been working from home before as well, so it doesn't really matter. And we're busy too. But there's some good guys on Twitter to follow as well. Check out, a few have responded to our live stream here. Check him out. There's some good unbiased guys out there, some good advice. Exploration Insights, obviously probably one of the most it's like sophisticated newsletters out there because you guys are actually geologists, right? While others are just more.
Joe's done a really good job of putting together the information in a headline, what's important, and then all the details if you're interested.
No, exactly. And I like how you rate news releases as well at the beginning of your newsletter. You say positive, neutral, or negative, right? So it gives me as a novice, like I'm not a geologist, that's why I like reading it, the opportunity to go through the material that interests me as well. Brent, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it. I know you're going to hopefully go for a hike now or something. So
I think so, yeah.
And people can find you at explorationinsights.com. Make sure to sign up for the newsletter. It's really valuable. I use it. A lot of other people are subscribed to it. Get your information there while you have the time. But don't overextend. I actually like the advice somebody else gave the other day. During this time of crisis, also focus on your household financials so you don't overextend in other areas. So, Brent, thanks again, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, thank you. Good luck out there.